Hardest hit, with at least 39 storm-related deaths now confirmed. 250 people remain unaccounted for and are feared drowned in the industrial city of Monterey, where flash floods turned a dry river into a raging torrent. 160 of the missing were evacuees on buses trying to head inland to safety. Last night, one passenger could barely be seen waving from one of the 3 trapped buses. At least 6 police officers were swept away trying to rescue the passengers. The bodies of 5 of those officers have now been recovered. Scores of people are also missing from the lowland areas along the river. Monterey officials say at least 50,000 people have been forced from their homes. Mexico and Jamaica weren't the only areas hit by Gilbert. Yesterday, southern Texas was smacked along the Gulf Coast, and then today, San Antonio was hit hard by tornadoes. Here's more now from 7 News investigative reporter Dave Minshall.
The tornado's first target, an apartment complex in northwest San Antonio. Dozens of apartments ripped apart, 100 apartments ruined, unlivable. Residents shaken awake by the twister at 7:30 this morning saw the tornado rip off roofs, crush cars, and spread belongings everywhere.
We don't live here. We don't live here.
No one was home in this 3rd-story corner apartment when the twister hit, lifting the roof, blowing out the walls, sucking out all the contents. The apartment's owner was out of town and luckily didn't sleep in his own bed. What'd you find when you came home?
Rubbish, rubble, nothing, everything. It was just garbage everywhere. Pretty shocked.
What's left?
Not much.
But in spite of the destruction in this San Antonio apartment complex, nobody was even injured. Across the road, the twister clipped the San Antonio VA hospital, flipping ambulances on their sides. One ambulance flew into a nearby street. In the hospital, shattered windows, air conditioners torn off the roof. No air conditioning in several hospitals in the area.
They found an apartment for us.
So what are you going to do?
They're going to carry this stuff over here to the apartment, the stuff that we have in the truck.
2 miles away, a twister dipped into an area called Oxbow. Again, roofs peeled off by the winds. Some homes opened up like a tin can. More than 24 homes damaged, several destroyed.
I was prepared for the hurricane, and I went and bought ice and non-perishable, things to put in the ice chest when this all happened. And everything ended up in the kitchen. I couldn't get to it. So it didn't do me good.
More than a dozen tornadoes danced across metropolitan San Antonio today. Still more out in the rural sections of Texas. All of them brought as the last symbols of the power and violence of Hurricane Gilbert. In San Antonio, Dave Minshall, 7 News.
Red Cross workers in Texas have been busy for the past few days and nights. 2 nights ago, 240 shelters were set up in that state. Here in Denver, workers were prepared to go in case they were needed. Fortunately, that need never materialized. Now, the local Red Cross is still answering questions about friends and relatives who may have been in Gilbert's path. If you have a question, you can reach the Red Cross at 399-0550. Also, the Salvation Army is collecting money, clothing, and blankets to send. If you'd like to help the Salvation Army, their number is 861-4883. A 17-year-old remains in detention tonight, held in connection with the Thursday night killing of another young man. 21-year-old Kevin Zook was shot to death near North High School during a street fight. Some of those fighting were gang members. Police called it, however, a neighborhood brawl rather than a gang fight. Patrols have been stepped up this weekend as a precaution to try and stem any further violence. And a teenager from Castle Rock is in fair condition tonight after being stabbed while standing in line trying to buy a concert ticket. 18-year-old Christopher Dodd was in line when 2 men broke in front of him. An argument began that led to a fight, which led to the stabbing. Police are now looking for the 2 white males apparently responsible for that stabbing. Still to come tonight on 7 News, investigators turn up some surprising evidence concerning yesterday's dramatic landing at Stapleton, and the Denver Symphony Orchestra plays literally for its supper.
This weekend, the 9th Annual International Photo and Video Show is coming.
NTSB disassembled the hydraulic actuator and found a gummy substance inside.
Well, we're going to complete our investigation, attempt to determine why the actuator will not operate as it's designed to do. And if we find that there is a problem that might be widespread, then we'll seek means to rectify the problem.
As you can see, both propellers were damaged, as were the flaps. However, experts say the one-month-old plane came through the emergency landing in remarkably good shape. Republican candidate George Bush is now advocating a parental leave plan to address the nation's child care needs. Colorado Congresswoman Pat Schroeder said she's glad the vice president is finally on board and explains how his plan differs from the one she's been fighting for 8 years.
Whereas mine is a job guarantee. It's an unpaid leave. But we're just delighted to have him saying the words and delighted to have him find out that it's such an issue and delighted to have him find out that the United States is about the last country in the world to have dealt with this, and it's long overdue.
Ms. Schroeder says Bush's plan is a tax credit, which will take a lot of revenue. You might say the musicians from the Denver Symphony Orchestra were singing for their supper today. Those musicians were playing at 6th and Gilpin this afternoon to raise money for the financially strapped DSO. The group has just 2 weeks now to come up with more than $1 million or the symphony may be history. Donations to the Save Our Symphony Fund can be sent to United Bank of Denver on Broadway. And it's German music filling the air at Larimer Square this weekend. That's where the 19th annual Oktoberfest is in full swing. You'll find plenty of steins, bratwurst, sauerkraut, and strudel. Our Annie Bjorkman kicked off the festivities this morning, and Governor Romer had the solemn duty of tapping the first keg of beer. Oktoberfest continues tomorrow and the next 2 weekends through October 1st. Still ahead tonight on 7 News, Dennis Ketterer will be up next with our weekend weather, and we'll find out if Hurricane Gilbert has finally fizzled.
Next time, Sammy's off the wagon.
Miss America will just have to wait. We won 9 Emmys tonight.
Yes, we won 9, 5 in the news department. We'll have details on that a little later tonight.
Channel 7 cooking at the Emmys.
Yes.
By the way, speaking of cooking, Saturday night news you missed.
Speaking of cooking, you can burn that before fire to cook.
I know. Wonder how much the sales of these have gone down. First of all, world's top scientists called into emergency session because a UFO base has been found in New Mexico, but more importantly, oh, there it is. Oh, come on, we got to get in tight on that. Right down here. Oh, other side. No, not Fergie. Right there. You know, they must have called my mom.
It looks like me about 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was just thinking, that was a family picture of me about 10 years ago.
Dennis, tell me, convince me you do not actually pay money for that magazine. Someone gives that to you, do
I don't shoplift it, and I don't read it, but...
Okay, good weekend weather-wise, though.
I can't believe the people pick it up. Don't believe anything you read in there. I'll tell you what, we did have a nice day, though, today. We got out of it pretty well, 84 degrees for the high, comfortable. Even now, the humidity for only 46%, winds out of the southeast at 3, and we have a standard, not a standard, almost a standard barometer, but it is right now holding steady. Temperatures around the area, comfortable still in the 60s, lower 60s primarily, except Boulder, checking in at 69, and so is Golden. There's a little bit of wind coming down off the mountain, and I'm not really sure what's happened here, but that's where Gilbert was about a week ago. And what kind of ignore this arrow right here. This is what's left of the remnants of Gilbert, and it has kind of moved on into our area, into the Texas area rather, giving a little bit of the way of tornadoes and activity that David told you about. It's kind of subsided for the evening, but tomorrow it's going to pick up again because the cold air from the north is going to push in, and as that cold air pushes on in, what will happen is, as the storm moves off to the east, there's some pretty good showers and thunderstorms, and tomorrow it'll extend all the way from the Dakotas all the way back down to Mexico. Sunny skies over the southeast. It will be windy across our area as a cold front pushes on in, and snow to help the firefighters out in Yellowstone. In fact, up to a foot of the white stuff tonight, so it looks good that we're going to get a little help there. Temperatures in the 70s tomorrow all across the Great Lakes, and the 80s in the rain belt, and that's from the tropical humid air coming up from what's left of Gilbert. It will be the remains, just a low pressure system. And see the tornado that we have right here? That's because we're forecasting tornadoes for Texas again tomorrow. So here's our forecast for the next 5 days. Tonight, very pretty, low gets down to 51. Tomorrow, look for a 10% risk of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, nice days, albeit cooler, with fall approaching full swing on Thursday.
Very good. A Gilbertless forecast for a while.
A Gilbertless forecast. We'll have to move on. Well, hopefully we won't have to move on to the next one.
Okay, obviously Emmy award-winning weather now.
That's right.
Okay, Dennis.
With news you missed.
Very good. Thanks a lot. Still to come on 7 News, it's the night Colorado television industry honors its own. We'll have some of the big winners when we come back. Reporting tonight to our John Keating and Bill Hitchcock for Top Run. Harry Smith, formerly of Channel 7, made it back from Texas to host tonight's gala in Loretta Heights College Performing Arts Theater. Also, investigative reporter Dave Minshaw, who's still battling Gilbert in Texas, has been honored with 3 Emmys tonight. So far, Channel 7 won 9 Emmys, 5 of those from our news department. And we're obviously very proud of that. Coming up at 6:25 and 7:25 on Monday morning, you'll be able to enjoy local news reports from the Channel 7 newsroom. The local updates will air during the CBS Morning News. Again, that starts Monday morning at 6:25 and 7:25. And that's it for 7 News this evening. Sports Final with Brian Dries is next. Thanks for joining us. Have a super evening. Good night.
This has been a presentation of KMGH 7 News, proudly honored for the 3rd year in a row as Denver's best newscast by the Associated Press.
Yeah, but it won't be anything comparable to what we had at the beginning of last week, where we had the cold air come in. We only saw temperature highs in the upper 40s, rain for 3 days, that sort of jazz. But it's going to act a little more like autumn in the few days to come, which is Thursday. First day of autumn is this coming Thursday. Oh, it's an exciting event in the weather department.
Oh, yes, it is. I know that.
Let's take a look outside and check out our extremes today. This is a picture of sunset that we took from the old mighty Skywatch 9 camera this afternoon. Beautiful sunset it was. Low temperature this morning in Denver, 43 degrees. The normal high this time of the year in Denver is 77, but we certainly topped that today. Beautiful day, 85 degrees. Still clear skies outside at this particular hour. Current temperature is 63 degrees. The humidity 46%, barometer 29.88. It's steady and the winds out of the southeast 3 miles per hour. Still pretty darn hot down in the southeast. High temperatures for Colorado, both La Junta and Lamar saw temperatures of 93 degrees today. Pueblo 91, Colorado Springs 83, got up to about 84 degrees over in Lyman. Heading up to the high country, very pleasant as well. Eagles 79 degrees, while over in Grand Junction, high there was 86 degrees. The satellites, a little deceptive this evening because the satellite's reading temperatures, the cooler temperatures of the mountains, and believe it or not, we have mostly clear skies over Colorado this evening. Now we look over the nation. Here's a little storm system that we're watching up here in the form of a Pacific cold front, and we expect cooler air to be dipping down into Colorado by tomorrow afternoon all the way into Monday and Tuesday. The brunt of the storm is going to confine itself to the mountains of Wyoming as well as Montana. Some of the higher elevations of Montana could see as much as a foot of snowfall over the next 36 hours. Here are the remnants right here of Hurricane Gilbert. I want to show you a time-lapse sequence over the past 20 hours. And although it's the winds are no longer associated with it, of course, heavy, heavy rains, as much as 20 inches of rain in parts of Texas. They still have tornado watches in effect this evening for parts, again, of Texas, and they had as many as 30 tornadoes reported in that area for today. Even just a touch of cloudiness getting up into southeastern Colorado. We look at the national forecast. Showers and thunderstorms will prevail from Texas up into the Central Plains, Kansas City, Missouri, where the Broncos are playing tomorrow. Pretty darn good chance of rain for the game as we see it on Sunday. Some scattered showers, again, moderately heavy snow in parts of Montana for Sunday as well. High temperatures cooler behind the front. 51 the forecast high in Billings, Montana, even cool in Salt Lake City. High there will be 64, while Atlanta will get up to 88. Colorado forecast for us, mostly windy as the system begins to work down into the state. 70s and 80s, cooler tomorrow than what we saw today. 70s and 80s to the east. Up in the mountains tomorrow, mostly 50s and 60s, and some scattered showers in the high country, mainly the central and northern mountains. 60s and 70s over in the western slope. Here's the outlook for this evening. Mostly clear skies. Breezes later on this evening with a low temperature of about 50 degrees. Sunday, partly sunny. Winds, I would say maybe 20 to 40 mile per hour winds as the cold front begins to work its way through by tomorrow afternoon. High temperature around 77 degrees. Still pretty darn nice. Again, that's the normal high. Monday, things begin to change. Morning clouds, some showers possible, much cooler. High temperature near 63, and the extended forecast keeps us, oh, I'd say in the mid-60s to lower 70s. So it looks like we're done with the 80s for a little while to come.
We're not going to recover like we did this weekend, huh?
Back up to the mid-80s?
Yeah.
Not for a while, Marcus.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks, Cliff. You're a lot of fun. Ward.
When we come back, fire and fury in the streets of Seoul as the Olympics get underway.
Unlike other copier companies, at Meta we give copiers all our attention, so you won't have to give them any. Unlike...
He made a flawless belly landing on the foamed runway after flying around to burn up excess fuel. He declined to tell us anything about the flight when we got in contact with him today, but he did confirm he was the pilot. Zulo is 34 years old. He is known as an excellent pilot. For the past 10 years, he has worked for Rocky Mountain Airways. None of the 7 passengers nor 2 crew members on the plane was injured, a tribute to Zulo's flying skill.
2 cosmonauts were honored in Moscow today for the way they landed a Soviet capsule. The 2 men came very close to being stranded in space, you might recall, because of equipment and crew problems. Abdul Momand is the world's first Afghan cosmonaut. He and the Soviet spaceman were awarded Heroes medals. The 2 were forced to postpone the landing of their space capsule September 6th because of equipment failure. They managed to touch down safely the next day, although they were dangerously low on food and oxygen.
Narcotics hauls by police seem to be getting bigger these days. A few weeks ago, 500 pounds of cocaine was seized in New York. Today, South Carolina drug agents announced the seizure of 22 kilos of coke, one of the largest hauls they've ever made. The drugs were seized at a motel in Charleston. A 43-year-old man and a 53-year-old man were arrested. They're believed to be responsible for 60% of the coke traffic in Charleston.
Police in Seoul still having problems keeping a lid on demonstrations, the latest stage by radical students opposed to having the Olympics in South Korea. Some 200 of them clashed with riot police in a shopping district just hours after the games opened. About 24 were arrested and taken away after police moved in quickly to break up the protest. Later in the day, about 700 students staged another rally, this one at Korea University in central Seoul. They lit a bonfire with what they called an anti-Olympic torch. Tom Green joining us now. CU coming home with a big win under their belt.
They certainly look happy getting off the plane tonight. CU beats Iowa, kind of an upset in Iowa. We'll have highlights from that and all the sports coming up.
It's more than just a run. It's the 10th anniversary.
24-21 come-from-behind win at Iowa should get them some national attention. The Buffs' win over the 19th-ranked Hawkeyes is probably the biggest road win in Bill McCartney's tenure up in Boulder. The Buffs got out on top early on. J.J. Flanagan gets into the end zone here before he does lose the football. 7-0 CU in the first period. Just 3 minutes later, it's Salinas. He keeps it, finds a seam, goes 17 yards for the touchdown, and the Buffs led it 14-0 after 1 period. In the second quarter, after CU was pinned in deep in their own territory, Keith English's punt was blocked by Tyrone Berry. Merton Hanks recovered. It was 14-7. Then the Iowa defense held CU, got the ball back. David Hudson tied it at 14-all. Now in the fourth quarter, Iowa was leading 21-17 at CU's 10-yard line, but Dave McLuhan with a cornerback blitz knocks the ball loose from Chuck Hartley. Alfred Williams recovers on the 15. That sets up the winning drive, which is capped by Salinesi's quarterback sneak. An 85-yard drive, and the Buffs win it 24-21. Upon arrival in Denver tonight, Bill McCartney still seemed full of optimism.
This is a young football team, and they responded to adverse circumstances today and showed a lot of character. And anytime that you have that kind of character and the kind of morale that we have right now, if we can stay healthy, we can do significant things.
So the Buffs with the big win on the road in Iowa. The rest of the Big 8 action saw Oklahoma handle Arizona, Auburn all over Kansas. Baylor shut out Iowa State. Houston had no problem with Missouri, and Tulane beat K-State by 4. Colorado State Rams are playing right now in Tempe against the Arizona State Sun Devils, and the Rams are doing rather well. That game is tied at 7-all early in the third period. Now, earlier today, the Air Force Falcons ripped Northwestern apart down in Colorado Springs. First quarter scoreless game. Albert Booker takes the pitch, goes down the near sideline. It's 28 yards for the touchdown, and the Falcons lead it 7-0. In the second quarter, the Falcons led it 14-6. Dowis this time elects to keep the football. He goes 5 yards for the score. Falcons led it 21-6. D. Dowis was fabulous passing the football today. 11 for 11 for almost 300 yards. This time a 58-yard completion to Steve Senn for down to the 3-yard line. That sets up a short Andy Smith touchdown run. The Falcons win it by a final score of 62-27 over Northwestern. Wyoming continues to roll. They beat Louisiana Tech by 32. BYU rallied to top UTEP. Stanford over San Diego State. Illinois handled Utah for John Makovic's first win, and Texas blistered New Mexico 47-zip. In the top 20, it looked like there would be a new number 1 today. Michigan was leading top-rated Miami 30-14 with 6 minutes to go in Ann Arbor, but the Hurricanes rallied for 17 points down the stretch to stay unbeaten with a 31-30 win. Second quarter, Michigan trailed 14-13, but Mike Taylor hits John Colazar for an 18-yard score, 20-14 Michigan at the half. Third quarter, Miami has a 4th and 2. Steve Walsh goes 48 yards to Cleveland Gary. Look at the run by Gary. Michigan did hold on to a 30-28 lead at this point late in the game. However, Miami got the ball back. And with 43 seconds left, Carlos Huerta hits a 29-yard field goal. Miami beats Michigan 31-30. UCLA is having no problem with Long Beach State. They are playing in the third quarter. And Clemson and Florida State hooked up in a beauty in Death Valley, South Carolina. This is Chip Davis on the flea flicker throwing the football to Gary Cooper. Goes for the long touchdown, 61 yards. Clemson led it 7-0. Florida State was trailing 14-7. All-American safety Deion Sanders went back, took this punt, and returned it 76 yards right through the middle of the Clemson special teams. That tied the game at 14-all. Now, the game was tied at 21-all late in the game when Florida State coach Bobby Bowden elected to go with a fake punt deep in his own territory. Leroy Butler did the rest, 76 yards down to the Clemson 1-yard line, set up the winning field goal. Richie Andrews hits from 19 yards away. And Florida State beats Clemson 24-21. The rest of the top 20 saw Georgia beat Mississippi State late. Notre Dame goes to 2-0. LSU topped Tennessee. West Virginia rolled over Maryland. Penn State got a late field goal to beat BC. Washington over Army by 2 touchdowns. And Pittsburgh tonight topped Ohio State 42-10. Locally, Southern Utah State beat Mesa 42-28. No report on Northern Colorado. Fort Lewis beat Western State by 3. Adams State whipped Panhandle State. Colorado College over Pomona. And Doane beat the School of Mines. In the NFL, the Broncos will have their first road game of the 1988 season tomorrow in Kansas City, and if Cliff's forecast is correct, it could be a tough go. The Broncos have historically had plenty of trouble with the Chiefs at Arrowhead, but Casey has really struggled this year and should be a team the Broncos can handle. The Chiefs bench starting quarterback Bill Kenny this week, giving Steve DeBerg a chance to face John Elway, the man who took his job with the Broncos 5 years ago. In prep football, this is Columbine in blue leading 7-0 against Evergreen. David Demerit, 4-yard touchdown pass to Chris Monson. The Columbine goes on to win 28-7. And meanwhile, Smoky Hill and White trailed Aurora Central 21-16, but Steve Keenan's touchdown pass to Tim Nobbins put Smoky Hill ahead to stay. They win at 24-21. Columbine over Evergreen. Cherry Creek shut out Pueblo South. It was Alameda topping Wheat Ridge. Heritage shut out Doherty. Boulder over Hinckley. Denver East shut out Manual. And Montbello beat TJ by 5. In baseball, the Boston Red Sox got 3-hit pitching from Bruce Hurst as they tighten their grip on the American League East pennant with a 3-1 win over the Yankees today at Fenway Park. The win pushed New York 5.5 games behind the Bo Sox. Game was tied at 1. Bottom of the 8th inning, Dwight Evans rips into this Charles Hudson pitch. Solo home run put the Red Sox on top 2-1. Got another run as Larry Parrish doubled home Todd Benzinger. That would be the final score. The Red Sox win it 3-1 at Fenway. Cleveland handled Toronto. Minnesota over Chicago. The A's beat the Royals 3-2. Detroit over Baltimore. Seattle is handling the Brewers in the 7th inning. California trails Texas in the 8th. In the National League, it was the Mets over the Expos. The Cubs beat the Blues. The Cards. San Francisco over Houston. The Dodgers beat the Reds. Pittsburgh topped Philadelphia, and San Diego and Atlanta split a pair. Now in Seoul, the Summer Olympics got underway today, and in the men's basketball competition, the United States sent a serious message out to the rest of the world with a 44-point win at the expense of Spain. Final scores in the Americans' first game, 97-53. The U.S. men's volleyball team also blitzed Japan in 3 games, and in the women's platform diving, Zhu Yanmei of China won the gold medal. Americans took the silver and bronze. And in the cycling, the 100-kilometer team time trial, East Germany took the gold, followed by Poland and then Sweden. And in hockey, game out at the Denver Coliseum tonight, Pittsburgh Penguins in an exhibition game lead the Rangers 5-2 late in the 3rd period. Superstar Mario Lemieux, a goal and 4 assists. Okay. Kind of a good night.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Mark.
We will be right back.
Good evening. A high wind warning is out for much of the Front Range. Dennis Ketterer here with us with the latest. Dennis, what's going on?
Carol, a cold front is passing through, and to say that it's vigorous is an understatement. Winds up to 92 miles an hour in Fort Collins, 80 miles an hour in Longmont. Reports of 100-mile-an-hour winds in Boulder as well as Arvada. So if you haven't had a chance to get out and tie things down or bring garbage cans in, it would be a good time to do it. It will get worse before it gets better. Sheridan is kind of the cutoff line, Sheridan Avenue, in the western metro area for the 90-mile-an-hour plus winds that we're expecting to come through here until about midnight. And I'll have more for you during weather in just a few minutes.
All right, a lot of leaves on the ground.
Lots of them.
Thanks, Dennis. Hurricane Gilbert's deadliest blow has been in Monterey, Mexico, where the confirmed death toll tonight stands at 60. That number will undoubtedly continue to rise as rescue workers search for the estimated 200 people swept away when flash floods sent the main river pouring over its banks. That includes 160 passengers on 4 buses who were trying to escape inland to safety. The chassis from one of the buses was pulled from its murky grave today, while another lay upside down and crushed on the other side of the stream. Only 2 passengers are known to have survived in the small seaside town of Matamoros. That's just across the border from Brownsville, Texas. 34 of the town's 36 restaurants were flattened by Gilbert, but no fatalities were reported. Now, one of the first areas of Mexico to be hit was the Yucatan Peninsula. Cancun and Cozumel, popular areas for Denver divers. 2 local divers were on the beach at Cozumel when Gilbert came ashore. They watched and shot their own home video, and here's some of what they saw. Early Tuesday morning, the coast of Cozumel was picture perfect. Only a slight wind blowing the palm trees. The word was out that a storm was coming, but no one from the hotel or the Mexican government moved in to move the guests out. That left Doug Stiebner and Brenda Brodt not knowing what to do.
And there didn't seem to be a whole lot of authority around there, anybody in power saying, well, you should do this and you should do that. So obviously we're just kind of worried about what we should do.
By nightfall, the winds had kicked up and the Caribbean waters were churning. But by 6 the next morning, Gilbert was knocking on their door. And for the next 24 hours, it was a shock to these divers to see the waters they love to explore become a giant raging pool. The beach totally swallowed. The side of this hotel blown away. And what used to be a beach bar washed to sea. Thursday morning broke sunny and calm. But it was clear that an unwelcome visitor had blown through. Something that still leaves a sick feeling in Brenda's stomach.
It makes me a little ill to look at the tape. I worry about the people that are left down there and what they're dealing with. And yeah, I'm glad that it's over. I got a little shook when the rumor flew that there was going to be another storm, but you know, we're glad it's over. We're glad to be back in Denver.
Now, after Gilbert had passed, both Brenda and Doug made one last dive. They discovered while the storm caused major damage on shore, he was less harsh with the ocean floor. They also told me they're looking forward to their next trip back to Cozumel.
Tornadoes spun off by Gilbert caused widespread damage across southern Texas this weekend. A resident of Del Rio videotaped this twister as it hopscotched across the border town yesterday. The tornado flattened several homes and businesses, causing $3 million damage. 2 people suffered minor injuries. In San Antonio, tornadoes killed 2 people. At least a dozen tornadoes touched down there late Friday and early Saturday. The remnants of Gilbert are also causing flash flood watches throughout central, west, and north Texas. Jesse Jackson toured the hurricane-ravaged island of Jamaica today. Jackson and several congressmen are assessing damage so that they can make recommendations for relief. Gilbert crossed directly over the island, leaving 500,000 people homeless. 80% of the island's houses were either damaged or destroyed by the 145-mile-per-hour winds. Government officials say that the hurricane was the worst disaster in Jamaica's history, and they estimate losses at $3 billion.
At least 6 deaths are reported in connection with last night's military coup in Haiti. Today, a former military advisor to the Duvalier dictatorship, Brigadier General Prosper Avril, declared himself as president. Tonight, Haitians are apparently venting their frustrations as radio reports indicate angry mobs have pillaged 2 homes belonging to the ousted leader and the home of the mayor of Port-au-Prince. One witness tells of seeing 2 bodies in the courtyard of the mayor's home.
A crowd of thousands surged into the streets of Burma today, demanding democracy and protesting the 4th change in government in 4 months. Their civilian president was ousted today by the commander of the armed forces. Economic and social chaos were the purported reasons for the overthrow. The president's fate not known.
Still to come tonight on 7 News, we'll tell you just how local educators are coming together to fight gang violence, and volunteers in Boulder need your help to save abandoned horses.
About 380 officers took part in the sweep, which was prompted by a shooting that left 1 person dead and 4 injured. The arrests ranged from felony drug crimes to misdemeanors. LA police also wrote hundreds of traffic citations in gang areas and confiscated 66 cars, 8 guns, and an undisclosed amount of cocaine and marijuana. David?
And there's more local gang news tonight as Northeast Denver's churches are fighting again to win back area young people from the streets. Church leaders, teachers, and parents gathered this afternoon for Education Day at the Macedonia Baptist Church. The idea was to highlight the importance of education and a religious upbringing for local youth. Also, there were testimonials.
I think it's better for you to get involved with church than be on the streets trying to be in a gang or something, because you're not getting nowhere,
Every time we have a special program like this, I try to make it to it. It makes me feel good, and then it keeps me out of trouble and off the streets.
Today's organizers are realists. They don't expect to solve all the area's crime, gang, and drug problems with today's event, but they do hope to get community young people moving and thinking in a better direction.
New witnesses have come forward in the state's investigation of ritualistic child abuse at an Akron daycare home. Allegations that children were being sexually abused surfaced last year. 7 children showed symptoms of child abuse, and therapists say their stories suggest satanic ceremonies. Although new witnesses have come forward, the state attorney general says there is still not enough evidence to send the case to a grand jury.
The winds Dennis talked about at the top of the newscast are causing problems for firefighters in Left Hand Canyon tonight. Fire crews will spend the night trying to control the blazes that grew out of the remnants of the blaze that burned 2,600 acres last week.
The wind came up and started up some of these hot spots that were left over from the original fire. The fire is never declared out. It's been contained and it's been controlled, but we've had 20 to 30 mile an hour winds all day today, and we've had gusts up to 60 miles an hour.
While flare-ups after a major fire are not unexpected, firefighters say the winds will determine how fast the new blaze will spread.
Despite forest fires, tourism may hit an all-time high in Colorado this year. State officials are predicting a 5% hike over last year or even higher. The glowing forecasts are based on first part of summer figures. Visits to Colorado parks and monuments were up as much as 7%. 8% more cars and campers went through the Eisenhower Tunnel. The 18.5 million tourists spent more than $3.5 billion.
Still to come tonight on 7 News, those high wind warnings go out for many communities along the Front Range. Dennis Ketterer will have the complete weather forecast when we come back.
Next time on Cheers.
Wind, and actually there's a reason I don't have time to get into that. It's actually called the Windy City, and it's not meteorological, and it's, well, we don't have time. Here's what it looks like outside right now. Take a look at this. You talking windy. This is downtown in this area, and we're talking winds downtown about 30 to 40 miles an hour. In fact, in some of the canyons of the skyscrapers of the downtown area, winds could gust up to 50 and 60 pretty easily. Right now, the winds out of the northwest gusting to 32 miles an hour at the airport. The barometric pressure is on the rise, as you might expect. Our high today, 85 degrees, and temperatures now generally in the lower 50s all across the area. Golden at 49, Arvada at 53. It's 52 degrees now in Denver. On the satellite picture, you see this nice big cloud system that's all wrapped up. This is the remains of Hurricane Gilbert. It's now just a low pressure system that's centered over Oklahoma. Spawned tornadoes today in eastern Texas. Abilene had one touchdown near there. Nothing near the destruction of yesterday, however. This system is moving off, and right behind it is another cloud system, and that's the one that we're concerned about because that's the one pushing through. The frontal system is right here. It's pushing on through the Denver area. That's giving us the wind. Again, here is Gilbert, still kind of all tied up, but it's a low pressure system. It'll kick off some nasty showers and thunderstorms to our east. Nothing for us to worry about, but severe thunderstorm watch areas out for parts of eastern Nebraska tonight because of the system that is pushing through. By tomorrow, that cold front will go all the way through Kansas. High pressure moves in behind. The winds subside way down. We'll have sunny skies, comfortable temperatures in the 70s. It will be a real nice day tomorrow with that high pressure here. But the middle part of the country, where it has that cold air coming in, as I told you last night, and the moisture from Gilbert, that's where the severe weather goes. For us, tonight, a high wind warning until midnight. Wind gusts could get up to 90 miles an hour from Sheridan Avenue on west. However, they're starting to subside just a little bit right now. After midnight, we'll really see a change. And here's the rest of the 5-day forecast. I think you're going to like most of it. Notice sunny skies. Now, tomorrow there could be a few clouds hanging out in the morning, but 65 degrees for the high, lots of sunshine by the afternoon. And the rest of the week looks really nice, right on down to Thursday with a high of 79 and beautifully sunny skies. And that's what we're looking for. Not a bad week, just like autumn, huh?
All right, that's great. Thanks, Dennis.
You bet. Next on 7 News, some did it sitting, some did it walking, but they all did it to raise money for a good cause. We'll tell you what they did. And the Colorado television industry honors its own.
Finally. Take care of them. Volunteers at Colorado Horse Rescue already have 16 horses on their hands. They predict dozens more will be abandoned before winter comes.
You have to understand the horse eats a half a bale of hay during the winter when it's cold. And if you're figuring $5 a day, you know, that's a lot of money.
The Horse Rescue Organization was the beneficiary of this year's annual Fall Charity Horse Show. The event raised nearly $500. It will be spent on food and medical supplies for abandoned and abused horses.
And the animals at the Denver Zoo got to view lots of humans today in all shapes and sizes. The parade of people was a benefit for the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation. The 10K walk was the organization's second annual Walk on the Wild Side. About 1,000 folks took part in that zoo stroll.
Coming up in sports, it's a black day for Bronco backers. Their favorite Suns went to Kansas City but left their game in Denver. Brian Dries has the obituary next.
If I try to describe the music...
It'll only be 3 weeks into the NFL season, but already the Broncos have to dig themselves out of a hole. Denver's now 1-2 for the year, with both losses coming at the hands of AFC West rivals. A lackluster performance today in the, as usual, unfriendly confines of Kansas City's Arrowhead Stadium led to a KC win. Mike Hafner has more.
Going to Kansas City might be a catchy song title, but the Broncos won't be singing it any day too soon. They got beat today, 20-13, and are 1-2 to start the season for the first time in the Elway era.
We just got our backs to the wall now. How we come out fighting is going to determine what kind of team we got.
Kansas City opened the scoring in the first quarter with a 50-yard field goal from Nick Lowry, and that was matched by a Rich Carlos 23-yarder, but not before Denver had a Vance Johnson touchdown reception nullified when he was ruled to have been out and then come back into the end zone.
The official was looking at me, and he just kept yelling, you're in, because he was back there with me.
But it was still 3-3, and Kansas City struck on their next drive. In that drive, cornerback Jeremiah Castile was hurt, suffering from possible neck and back injuries, and will spend the night in Kansas City. That 58-yard drive ended on a Steve DeBerg 6-yard pass to Carlos Carson, and it was 10-3 Kansas City, and sweet revenge Steve DeBerg.
He's a good football player. There's no doubt about it. And when he's on, he's tough to deal with.
Denver wasn't about to give it up, though. They mounted a 75-yard drive of their own, capped by a Tony Dorsett 8-yard run, and it looked like Denver had found their stride, tied at 10 at the half. But Kansas City opened the third quarter with a near 9-minute drive, with DeBerg hitting running back Paul Palmer over the middle for 14 yards and a touchdown, and the game at 17-10 was essentially over.
If we have to search for direction anymore, we're in trouble, because there's only one way for us to go, and that's the way we've got to go, because our backs are against the wall. Even though we do have 13 left, we can't afford to, with the schedule we've got ahead, we can't afford to lose too many more.
Nobody's looking for excuses. We just got to get after it. So we got to back to the wall. We just got to go our neck and work a little harder.
It's the Raiders next week after this bitter 2013 loss. Mike Hafner, 7 Sports.
Next up for the Broncos, as Mike mentioned, the Raiders a week from tomorrow night. The Black Shirts were losers today, as were the boys from Seattle in Los Angeles. The Rams took the lead on the Raiders when Greg Bell slashed his way into the end zone. Rams in front 7-0. It was 10-3 Rams in the third quarter when Raider quarterback Steve Berline took it up top. Marcus Allen is all alone, touchdown 10 apiece. The Rams sacked Berline 9 times. This trip job earned a safety and a 12-10 Ram lead. They tacked on a field goal, and then Jim Everett rolled out right and fired a rocket to Aaron Cox. This one covers 50 yards to the end zone as the Rams beat the Raiders 22-17. In San Diego, the Charger defense opened the scoring when Tyrone Keys batted Dave Craig's pass into the air. Keith Browner is there to grab it and then heads to the end zone. Now, in fairness to Keith, this is slow motion tape. It's going to take him a little while to cover the 55 yards to the end zone, but he will get there. And the score put the Chargers in front at this point 10-0. It was a banner day for Seattle receiver Steve Largent. With this catch, Largent moved past Charlie Joyner, becoming the NFL's all-time yardage leader among receivers. But it was San Diego picking up the win. Gary Anderson keeps after the fake reverse, and he will go the distance, a 25-yard touchdown as San Diego surprises Seattle with a 17-6 win. So in the West, the Broncos stumble in Kansas City, but the Raiders lose to the Rams, and the Seahawks fall to the Chargers. Time to take a break, but I'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's NFL action, and a snafu in Seoul could cost an American boxer his chance in the ring. By 2 over Dallas, the Skins over the Eagles, New Orleans beat Detroit, Buffalo over New England, Cincinnati beat the Steelers, Miami held off Green Bay, the Jets big over Houston, Phoenix beat the Bucks, Atlanta shocked the 49ers, the Colts and Browns go tomorrow night. Well, it's day 2 of the Summer Olympics in Seoul, South Korea, and the U.S. team is celebrating its first taste of gold. 17-year-old Janet Evans swam her way to the first U.S. gold of the Games by capturing the women's 400 individual medley in U.S. record time. Evans, who's in her first ever Olympic competition, has a shot at 3 goals in the Games. In men's swimming, America's Matt Biondi had hoped to win 7 goals in Seoul, but in his first event, the men's 200-meter freestyle, he had to settle for 3rd. Australian's Duncan Armstrong won the gold in world record time. In diving, as expected, America's Greg Louganis leads after the compulsory phase of the men's 3-meter springboard. Luganis won double gold 4 years ago, is favored to do it again this time around. The U.S. men's volleyball team went to 2-0 with a win over the Netherlands. The Americans in the red winning it 3-1. The U.S. women's basketball team got a tussle from Czechoslovakia, but the Americans in white pulled out an 87-82 win thanks to plays like that one. In boxing, these folks are arguing over the disqualification of American middleweight Anthony Himbrick. Himbrick was late for his first bout because the American team claimed he wasn't allowed on a full bus at the Olympic Village. He was disqualified. The Americans have appealed and are awaiting a decision. One other note, the U.S. soccer team a major surprise as the Americans played heavily favored Argentina to a 1-1 tie. In big league baseball, it could get pretty dull between now and the end of the regular season as the only race that was left is now all but over. Boston today making it 3 wins in 4 games with the Yankees. The Yankees got a run in their half of the first, but Boston's Ellis Burks wiped that out with this blast over the Green Monster, a 3-run dinger. Boston led it 3-1. 4 more for the Red Sox in the second inning. First, Marty Barrett yanks one that goes into the left field corner. Now, as the ball pinballs around, 2 runs come in to score, and Boston takes a 5-1 lead. Then Dwight Evans stepped up and launched one high, deep, and yes, gone over the monster. A 2-run home run make it 7-1 Red Sox. The Yankees trimmed the margin to 7-4, but in the Boston 8th, Kevin Romine lined one into right center. It goes for a 2-run triple. Boston led it 9-4, and that was the final, as the Red Sox take 3 of 4 from New York. So with the victory, the Yankees fall 6.5 back in the American East. Detroit loses today. They trail by 6. Milwaukee 6 back after beating Seattle. Elsewhere, Oakland's magic number in the West is now 2 as the A's beat KC and Minnesota lost to Chicago. Toronto blanked Cleveland. The Angels beat the Rangers. In the National League East, the Mets' magic number is 3 as New York beat Montreal while Pittsburgh lost to the Phils. In the West, 6 now the magic number for L.A. winners over the Reds. The Giants beat Houston. Atlanta beat San Diego. And St. Louis beat Chicago. And for the first time in 3 years, Arnold Palmer wins on the PGA Senior Tour.
Congratulations to Arnold.
Yeah, it's great to see.
Good. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. Up next on 7 News, he can sing, he can dance, and he makes $60 million a year. Makes you wish you could carry a tune. We'll tell you who he is. And they don't make $60 million a year, but some hardworking broadcasters got a pat on the back this weekend. Their triumphs when we come back.
Furs have always been the best in town, and now they're even better on a fantastic selection of fabulous furs, including this repeat of a sellout, a 7
times 625 and 725. We hope you'll join us.
Well, most everyone thinks he's bad, including himself, but now he is also the world's highest paid entertainer. Michael Jackson has moonwalked his way past Bill Cosby to become the top gun in the entertainment world, raking in an estimated $60 million this year. Forbes magazine reports that the Thriller has moved from 9th place to the #1 spot. Maybe he can now afford 2 gloves.
Good line. We at Channel 7 are savoring the fruits of our labors. Last night, the Colorado chapter of the National Academy of Arts and Sciences awarded the Emmys, and 9 of the golden statues went to Channel 7. Investigative reporter Dave Minshaw won 3 of those Emmys, one for his live news coverage of the crash of Continental Flight 1713, another for his investigative reports on security problems at Stapleton Airport, and one for his interview with David Lane, one of the white supremacists convicted in connection with the murder of radio talk show host Alan Berg. Reporter Bruce Burkhart won in the editorial category for his satirical look at Gary Hart's woes, and John Keating took top honors in sports reporting. The station also won Emmys for art direction, overall station promotion, an Emmy for writing promotion for AIDS awareness, and another promotional Emmy for news.
And once again, of course, we say congratulations to all of them. That's it for this Sunday evening. Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.
Good night.
This has been a presentation of KMGH 7 News, proudly honored for the 3rd year in a row as Denver's best newscast by the Associated Press.